Say, are you ready to go ahead and go deep? Are you ready to go ahead and go deep? So take a breath. Let's take a minute to let go of the way that we're used to looking at things for a minute.
Yes.
Give your mind a break. There is no longer a need to be in defense.
Oh, yeah.
There is no longer a need to be in defense. That means your body does not tighten. That your breath does not grow short. There is only openness and vulnerability. There is no longer a need to hide. There is no longer the need to be concerned with the perceptions of others. There is no longer the need to be concerned with the perceptions of others. A perception cannot harm you. 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 So there is no longer the need to be concerned with the perceptions of others. Since a perception cannot harm you, there is only such a love of self that nothing less than God will do.
Yeah.
There is only such a love of self that nothing less than God will do. Nothing less than God will do. Nothing less than love will do. Nothing less than love will do. There is only such a love of self that nothing less than God will do. So welcome to a way of mastery. Welcome to the way of mastery. Thanks for coming out to continue to try to give ourselves another way to look at things, no matter what the part of our mind that's determined to keep us upset comes up with.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but there seems to be an endless list of things that it uses. Like my mom used to say, if it ain't one thing, it's another. And somehow or another, you keep magically promising yourself that after the next thing is handled, then you're going to be happy.
Yeah.
Just as soon as the next thing is okay. And have you noticed that it tends to rotate? You know, the Course in Miracles says something very, if you have the Course in Miracles book, you might want to check out the lesson 79 that says, let me recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Because it talks about all how you think you solve one problem, then another one comes up, and then you think you solve this, and it's telling us that the problem is not anything other than we think we got many problems, instead of the one problem, which is our sense of separation from God. So as long as I think I have any other problem other than me not feeling connected to God and Source, then I'm going to keep on having what I call a lot of different problems. And so that kind of explained to me why it looked like I had a lot of different problems. Because I would always think that the problem was whatever it was I was dealing with on the outer first. And I've heard that a zillion times, and I hope Spirit keeps on telling me that until I get it. you know. So we're going to be on page 245 in the Way of Transformation, lesson 20, Vigilance for the Kingdom, on page 245 in part 2 of the Way of Transformation. And you know the drill. You don't have to believe it. You don't have to accept it. You don't have to welcome it. Some of it's going to be hard to believe. Some might be quite startling. I'm going to cover about 10 minutes of material. Then we'll throw it open for discussion for about 5 minutes. And then we'll go through another 10 minutes and see how much of the truth we can hear tonight. It's okay to feel any way you want to feel. It's okay to respond any way you want to respond or not to respond. So I'm taking all the expectations off of everybody, and I'm taking all the expectations off of me, so we can relax into it. So I'm going to start with the paragraph that says, so again in this lesson. So again in this lesson, we speak on the theme of desire. We're going to talk about desire. We seek to bring you to the point of realizing that desire is the great power of creativity. So the great power of creativity comes from desire. It is that which births your very experience, which means desire is perfectly free. I like that. Desire is perfectly free. And that desire, the power to desire, is within you, and you will never be without the power to desire. Will never be without the power to desire. It is impossible to be desireless. It's actually impossible to not have a desire, since you can only find yourself to be where you have desire to be. So therefore I can work back and say wherever I am is where I desire to be. Wherever I am is where I desire to be. And even if you are in deep and perfect silent meditation, you're in deep and silent meditation because of desire. So what's the point of that paragraph? That wherever I am is where I desire to be, even if it doesn't look like that's the case. Therefore, beloved friends, please decide this day to take responsibility for what you desire. So everybody's here tonight to hear what we're hearing tonight. So whatever your issue is, whatever the thing you're dealing with, whatever your problem is, the reason why you're here tonight is because there's something in this section tonight that's the solution to whatever it is you think you are going through. If you were sent here tonight, and everybody's sent, that's why it's different numbers of people every week, because the Course says people are sent. So these are the people that were sent tonight, so evidently it's something I need to hear tonight that's an answer to something that's on my mind that I need to know. So the first paragraph was telling me that, first of all, I need to realize that if I want to create a different situation, if I want to have a different experience, it's going to come out of my desire. And I'm wherever I am, in what area of my life that I'm in, whatever that area is, whatever that situation is, I'm in there because I desire it. Now, do we have to believe that? Do we have to believe that?
No.
Okay, but does your belief determine whether or not that's true? No. Because I used to think my belief determined whether or not something was true. So, therefore, it says, what are we supposed to decide today? I'm supposed to decide to take responsibility for what I desire, recognize that what I desire will be what I experience, and to recognize that what I desire literally creates the pathway whereby I will experience either heaven or hell. Now what's that? Either peace or turbulence, love or fear. And in each moment of desire, right where you are, each moment of desire, right where you are, you have just birthed an entire world. So your desire is birthing the world you see. So now I know what I'm thinking, because it is the world I see. And the world I see is neutral according to what he told us in the past. So what I'm seeing is the desire that I have. And so it's saying to us, in each moment of desire, right where you are, you have birthed an entire world. For out of desire, you will create your perceptions of everything from yourself to the furthest of stars, all in a split second, in a moment of timelessness. Which means that no matter what I'm going through, I could change it in a second. I could change it anytime if I was to get in touch with the power of desire. So part of the journey then of the way of transformation is this. learning to transform the experience that you're living so that you enjoy the experience that you're living more and more, and that you're also attached to the experience that you're living less and less. So we're supposed to enjoy our experience more and more, but be attached to what we are experiencing less and less. But when I'm in my ego, I find that I don't enjoy my experience. You enjoy your experience less and less, and you're attached to your experience more and more. So an unhappy person is not enjoying their experience more and more, but totally attached to their experience more and more. And it says, attached to it less and less, and then especially don't fear the experience you're having at all. So if the purpose of this way of transformation then is for us to transform the experience that we're living so that we can enjoy it more and more, be attached to it less and less, and be not afraid of it at all. That's the goal. Then it says, there are many in your world who would yet perceive spirituality as a way to get out of the place in which they find themselves. So many people are on the spiritual path, coming to classes and studying books just to get out of a situation they're in. And they call it spiritual seeking. But really, they're just trying to get out of a situation that they're in, not understanding that they can be nowhere except by their own mind, saved by your own mind. So as long as there is a desire to get out of where they are, then check this out. As long as there's a desire to get out of where they are, they will remain stuck within it. Why? Because only love can heal. It's only love that can heal, not the desire to get out of the situation. It's love that will get you out of the situation if you're going to get out of the situation at all. It's not the desire to get out of the situation that will get you out of the situation. It'll keep you stuck in the situation. Yeah. Haven't you noticed? So therefore, the way of transformation, the way of healing, which is the way of transformation, requires that you turn back to look at your creations, number one, to look back into your own mind and to bring love to whatever is coming up out of the desire to be the presence of Christ, which is the presence of love. So whatever was on my mind before I came here, whatever was bothering me, whatever was challenging me, I just heard in that paragraph exactly how to get out of it. Number one, I need to look back at my creations. I need to be willing to look at what it is I've created. Then I need to look back into my own mind and to bring love to whatever's coming up in my own mind, because that's what's creating it. Because I want to be the presence of Christ. That means I want to be the presence of love. I want to be the presence of truth. I want to represent another way of looking at things other than the way that most people look at things. And how do I do that? I look at my creations, look into my mind, and then I bring love to whatever is coming up. Then it tells us that, now, does this mean that as long as the body lasts and you find yourself in the world of space, time, and movement and all the rest, that you will not take the body from one location to another since it's all in my mind? Does that mean I never take my body out of that situation or put my body in a new relationship or put my body in a new job because it's all in my mind anyway? Then it says, of course not. I'm not saying that you're supposed to stay in any physical situation, condition, or situation, or location without moving your body to another location, situation if you want to. You might see somebody and you're having a relationship and you might say, I want to take my body away from you. You might be on the job and you want to say, I want to take my body away from this job. I want to take my body to another location. But what's interesting, it says, does it mean that third dimensional relationships will not come and go? Of course not. Third dimensional, this is the third dimension. Third dimensional relationships will come and third dimensional relationships will go. The Course in Miracles teaches that pain is your refusal to recognize that you've learned as much as you can out of a situation and you're refusing to let it go. And the more you attached you are to the thought of the situation, the more the pain increases. So most people are going through pain because they won't let go. It's like grabbing a hot skillet and I won't let go of it. And then the longer I hold it, the more I burn. That's the same as saying the longer I've been in this, the worse it feels. The longer I've been in this situation, the more I don't like it. That's because I'm attached. I won't let it go. Wow. Then it goes on to say, it does mean, what doesn't it mean? Well, it doesn't mean it's not okay for you to move from one situation or location with your body to another one. And it does mean that we are going to have to learn to let things come and go. And then it says it means you become completely free. This is I highlighted this paragraph, and if I say it 2 or 3 times, if that's how long it takes for me to hear it, and for us to hear it, then I'm going to say it 2 or 3 times. Okay?
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It does not mean you become completely free of the old perception that an attraction to a certain relationship is going to add something to you, or the avoidance of a certain relationship is going to keep you safe. It does mean that you become completely free of the idea that a certain relationship is going to add something to you. You have to let go of the belief that a certain relationship is going to add something to you, but you have to also let go of the idea that avoiding a certain relationship is going to make you safe. You can't, the relationship ultimately can't add anything to you, but avoiding relationship isn't going to necessarily make you safe. Rather, you begin to be free to let the dance of the third dimensional illusion simply have its day, but it no longer holds power over you. What would that mean in a practical way? It means you're not going to like everything that happens every day. Unless you're an enlightened Christ being. You're going to have things still come up. One of the biggest errors I think that we make on the spiritual path is that we think it means you're not going to have things come up. That if I'm doing this right, nothing's ever going to come up. And what he's telling us is that you got to be free to let it simply have its day. You got to be willing to let the third dimensional reality be what the third dimensional reality is, which is where things go up and down, come and go. And so it's saying to us, but the difference is when you practice what we're learning, it won't have any power over you. It won't be able to necessarily have any power over you. You're just going to let it be. So the higher state of awareness then, in which perception has been totally cleansed and purified, is actually one of a paradox. As soon as you seek to talk about it, you see the paradox. In other words, for you look upon yourself and you see yourself as a body and mind, you see yourself as having a certain name, you see yourself as living in a certain place, on a certain planet, doing a certain thing. Does that pretty much cover what we are? We think we are a body with a mind that has a name, that's living in a certain place, that's on a certain planet, that is doing a certain thing. He says in the very same moment, in the very same field of your mind, you can also know that you are not that body. You are not your name. You are not your history. That you are something more than your body, something more than your name, and something more than your childhood and what you've gone through in the past. You can know that you are grand. You can know that you're something divine. You can also know that you're something mysterious, which means I don't really know what the heck I am. Right? And he says you are something beyond comprehension. That's why you can honestly say, I don't understand myself. I don't know myself. Great. You are beyond comprehension. You are something mysterious, and at least in the realm of thinking, you're beyond comprehension. So you will literally know and feel within the core of your being the truth of both of those. In other words, you're going to have the paradox of looking at yourself as a body and a mind with a certain name in a certain place on a certain planet, doing a certain thing, and at the exact same time, you're going to know that you're not your body, you're not that name, and you're not that history, and that you're something grand and greater and more divine and mysterious than that at the same time. Got that? That's the paradox. He says, and there will no longer be opposition between the two ways of looking at yourself. You will no longer look at the responsibility and see a great schism between it and the nature of your true mind, but the two will become merged as one. I know that I have an Earl Purdy identity, and I also know that I have an identity that's beyond the Earl Purdy identity. A conscious being knows how to, they know they got a role in terms of thinking of themselves as a mother or father or a teacher or whatever, and at the same time you know you're something grand and you're something beyond that at the exact same time. And so it says at that point it becomes merged as one. So you will look at the most ordinary events that you experience with your body and see no differentiation whatsoever between that and the kingdom of heaven, which is the kingdom of love. It simply is arising and is literally held in and pervaded by and suffused by the reality that is true always. You will know that you are totally free. When will you know that you are totally free? You will know that you are totally free when you no longer feel any obstruction to whatever is arising in the field of your experience. You are totally free when you no longer feel any obstruction to whatever is coming up in your experience. Why? Because you're just going to simply see whatever's coming up in your experience, simply see whatever is coming up in your experience, simply look at whatever is coming up in your experience as another opportunity. See everything that's coming up in your experience as another opportunity to say, Holy Spirit, higher self, God, whatever works for you, what would you have me say? What would you have me do? What would it be like in this moment for me to realize that only love is real? So whatever it is that you were thinking about before you came in here, whatever it is that you might have been wanting to be different in your life, whatever it was that was bothering you, how are we supposed to see it? It's just another opportunity for me to say to Spirit, what would you have me say? What would you have me do? And what would it be like in this moment for me to simply realize that only love is real? What would it be like for me to realize in this moment that only love is real? What would it be like in this moment to only realize that only love is real? The first thing I'll say is what? What do you want me to say, God? What would you have me do, God? And what would it be like to realize in this moment that only love is real? Now, if we think about this for a minute, if we don't do this in any kind of a consistent manner, if we walk out of the room and we go back to it's my child, it's my boss, it's my girlfriend, it's my boyfriend, it's society, it's the government, and we still do that old projecting thing. But we actually don't stop to say, universe, what would you have me say? Universe, what do you want me to do? And what would it be like to experience love is real? Then we're not using the answer that we've been provided with. And so we shouldn't complain if we continue to experience the same thing if I'm not doing what I'm told to get rid of or to change the situation. And that's what I noticed that I used to do. I would come to classes and read books, be told specifically what to do that's different from what I would normally do, walk right out of the room and use the same old perception that I used to use, and then say the truth doesn't work, or still be complaining about what's happening. Has anybody else in here ever done that?
Yes.
Yeah, because we ask for an answer, right? And then Spirit gives us an answer, and then we turn around and then we don't remember to do this. I'm upset with somebody. I don't go, God doggone it, this is just an opportunity for me to ask Spirit, what would it have me say? What would it have me do? And what would it be like for me to realize that only love is real right now? See, when I get to the point that that's my first response to something, then I'll know I'm really getting this. And do you know what? It's not. It's not my first response. It's not my first response consistently. It's my response more than it used to be, but it is not the first thing that I say as soon as something comes up in my experience that I think I'd like to experience is different or that's upsetting me. I go, what would you have me do? What would you have me say? This is an opportunity for me to experience love as being real. What would it be like? Then I go, let me call my doctor, let me call my lawyer, let me call the police, let me go to the store, let me go buy the clothes. You need to always tell yourself the truth first, then do whatever you're intuitively led to do after that that's peaceful. It's not until I get to the point that the truth is the first thing that comes to my mind that I'm getting this. And it's already said that my belief is not necessary, that my belief doesn't make the truth true. So I don't have any reason to go through the analytical process of thinking that I need to know exactly how this is going to work for me to use it. That's just a delay and maneuver to keep from practicing. So usually all the need to get a million explanations is just a delay and maneuver to keep from doing the very simple things that I'm being instructed to do that I know I'm capable of doing. I know I'm capable of saying, what would you have me say, what would you have me do, and what would it be like in this moment for me to simply realize that only love is real. Now I know that I'm capable of doing that. Hold just a second. Okay, so it says, then you will listen to that voice. You will feel that voice deep in your heart, and you will simply act on that voice and none other. You will not listen to what other minds think you ought to do. You will not listen to what other people tell you ought to do. You will not listen to what other minds tell you ought to do. You will not listen to what other minds tell you ought to do. You will not listen to what other minds tell you ought to do if you're listening to the voice for God inside of yourself. Okay, I need to remember that. You will simply listen to that one voice. That one voice will not speak to you from the ego, which means that one voice will not speak to you from judgment. There will be no judgment. There will be no fear. That's funny that this is coming up again, because on Sunday I covered the exact same thing out of the Course in Miracles, where it was saying, how can you tell when you listen to the voice of God? Well, it's going to tell you that there is no loss under the laws of God. There's only giving under the laws of God. There's not going to be an attack on you. It's not going to be a judgment on you. It's going to be telling you how in love you are, and how that what created you yearns to love you. It's like one of the questions that I ask, and that many people have asked me over the years, is how do you tell the difference between the voice of your ego and the voice of spirit? We're being told very clearly how to tell the difference. One scares the hell out of you, and the other one doesn't. One involves some form of attack and judgment, and the other one doesn't. It's really not hard to tell. So if I'm depressed, my depression is all I need to know I'm listening to my ego. Period. God is nowhere in what I'm thinking if I'm a miserable, depressed person all the time. So I know whatever I'm thinking is not true based on how I'm feeling and how I'm looking at things. It really is so simple that I begin to ask myself, why am I acting like this is not obvious? Did you ever, you know what I'm saying? It's not like it takes, I have to be a rocket scientist to understand what I'm being told. But I'll act like it is asking me to be a rocket. So I hear something this simple and go, but what do I do? I hear something this simple and go, well, what do I do? It's like, because I still think my understanding is a powerful contribution to the truth and makes it what it is. So I'm still thinking my understanding is what's needed, rather than, it's almost like a person needs you to cut on a machine that will save their life, and they keep telling you, would you flick that switch? And then you go, well, I'm not going to flick the switch until I understand how electricity works, and I'm not going to flick the switch until I know how that machine works. And when you explain to me how that machine works, and when you explain to me electricity, I'll flick the switch. And that's what it's saying to us now. Flick the friggin' switch, Earl. Well, what's the switch? For me to stop for a minute and recognize that I need to ask Spirit, what do you want me to say? What do you want me to do? And ask myself, what would it be like in this moment for me to simply realize that only love is real? For me to assume responsibility and say to myself, this is what I at some level desire, even though I don't understand why I'm desiring it or how I'm desiring it or what I'm doing. My job is to take responsibility for what I'm experiencing, and I'm told the more I do that, the more my peace will come, the more the situations will begin to straighten themselves out, and the more power, and the more joy, and the more happiness I'll have in my experience. But I just need to start saying. Notice that it said, this is an opportunity to say. It didn't say this is an opportunity to analyze. It says this is an opportunity to say something. And every one of us are capable of doing that. Unless we have not had enough of the butt whooping of the situation that we're going through. In that case, we will go to sleep, we will go unconscious, and we will not practice it. That just means I haven't had enough of it yet. Sorry, I need a little bit more of this. And the universe, out of its love and out of the fact that you're free, will let you keep on experiencing it over and over and over and over and over and over until you decide that you're ready to look at it differently. So it took me a while to begin to understand that when you're unconscious of something and you're doing it, that's one thing. But the once somebody tells you what's going on, and then you still continue to do the same thing you've been doing, then that is just your choice. And so I don't have to get caught up in that. I don't have to fall, you know what I'm saying? I can go ahead and release it and let you keep going through it, because you know what, Earl, you've been given an alternative. Earl, you're not using the alternative, so therefore you're just choosing to keep doing it the way that you've been doing it, and so therefore there's no one to blame anymore. There's no one to blame about anything, because there's another way you could see it, and you're choosing not to use it. So the universe did respond, God did respond, love did respond. You still have a desire to keep going through what you're going through, because whatever that is, there's a payoff that you're getting out of it that's more important to you than the pain that you're going through. And whenever the payoff that you're getting is greater than means more to you than the pain you're going through, you'll stay in a situation and not let it go. All right. Boom. Okay, we've got 2 more paragraphs. We actually have to finish the whole section. We bad. Really, really bad. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
See, I love this stuff. I would much rather listen to something like this than my own conversation any day.
Yeah.
Who else feels that way?
Yes.
Yeah, I would rather listen to something like this than the song that my ego sings and anybody else's ego sings.
Yeah.
Because I hear that all day.
Yeah.
You know, I was looking at the news this evening and it was like, it's so insane. It's just so insane that now you just breathe. And you're looking at, and then the truth is teaching you, hey brother, you know whose mind you looking at?
Yeah.
Yours.
Yeah.
I know you want to blame the Israeli and the Gaza people and the people that shot the plane from the sky. And you want to think all that's happening outside of you, and you're just this little innocent person in an insane world trying to make it. But what you're looking at is your whole mind. Not the part of your mind that you're identifying with, your whole mind. And there's some stuff going on in your mind that you don't know about, and you're opening your eyes and you're looking at your own attack thoughts. And you need to realize that if you want to see a world that's not full of that stuff that you're looking at, you've got to change your mind. Well, how do I do that? Well, the first thing I do is say, my goodness, the 5 o'clock news, this is an opportunity for me to say, Holy Spirit, what would you have me say? What would you have me do? And what would it be like in this moment for me to simply realize, in the midst of all this insanity, that only love is real? Now, until I'm sitting in front of the news on TV and reading the newspaper, and that's my first response, then I'm not using the answer that God gave me. Does that make sense to everybody? So I'm being given another way to look at it, that if I use with any consistency will begin to change my mind, but I'm choosing to go first. And then get mad at all the people that seem to be the perpetrators first. So my ego is actually using the news to create more unconsciousness and more separation. My spirit is using the news to actually be a healing force in the world by the way I'm choosing to look at it. So either I'm adding to the problem or I'm a solution. I'm the solution to the problem. And so the last paragraph says, you will simply come and go, and this is really good, as one unknown by the world. Now most of us are pretty successful at that. Being unknown. But do you know that's where the ultimate freedom is located? The more unknown you are, the freer you are. That's why I never want to be a quote-unquote famous teacher. And I've been very successful. One of the things I've succeeded at. Completely. So it says, you will simply come and go as one unknown by the world, and yet one who looks to be very ordinary. One who looks to be the same as everyone else. I mean, we took all of us and we pulled out in the street and went to the mall. They wouldn't say, that's the course group, that's the way of master group. We would actually look like everybody else, right? The difference is that though the body still seems to walk upon the earth The difference is you are literally not just walking on the earth, you are embracing the earth. It's the difference between walking on the earth and complaining and walking on the earth and embracing. But you look like everybody else, and it says, in you, you will know that fear is gone. So you will be walking the earth, embracing the earth with no fear inside you. You'll be walking the earth, embracing the earth with no fear inside you. I will be walking the earth, embracing the earth with no fear in me when I'm looking at it correctly. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-da, ba-ba-ba-ba, boop. Now, questions or comments? Or discussion? You had your hand up first, my dear, and then we're going to get you next, brother.
The thing is, as long as there's a desire to get out of where they are, I'm having a little difficulty with that because I'm thinking that if one is asking to see something differently is not the same as a desire to get out of where you are.
When it's looked at correctly, that's exactly right. When you say that you want to see things differently, that's a request for the truth.
That's not trying to flee something.
That's not necessarily trying to flee something. You're just trying to see it in a way that will free your mind, because that's what's really needs to be free.
Fear and the pain that you think you feel.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Everybody hear that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, my brother?
Something that had troubled me for a long time was the difference between, it was the action that took me from unconsciousness to conscious.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I was overanalyzing. Could be. Anyway, conclusion I reached is it's simple. It's practice. Hello, practice. I'm going to drive home after the Way of Mastery, and I'm going to have all kinds of opportunities to practice consciousness. You know what I mean?
Oh,
so, yeah.
Call Earth.
So, I mean, the action is simply practicing and being aware.
Yes.
And there's no magic to it. It's just practice.
And I need to practice what I was told.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really cool, I would think, between the Way of Mastery, the Course in Miracles, and other books that people study, that there's got to be several hundred very specific things that Spirit is telling us at any given time to do. And if I would just be willing to use one consistently, I could transform my entire perception of reality. But there's a part of me that still won't stop and do this and say what I'm being told to say, because there's a part of me that still thinks my understanding is the key to making the truth work. Just like I gave the analogy a minute ago. Just when you flick that switch, it will turn on the machine that will save my life. And you're still going, but I don't, what is a switch? And who made a switch? And what company made that machine? That's really the way we do, don't we? I mean, am I being ridiculous? I mean, we really act like we need to understand everything before we can receive the benefits of it. And in that case, I would never fly from one city to the next. I wouldn't have gotten over here tonight if I had to know anything about how my car operates. But when we come in the truth class, our ego, and I'm not trying to stop you from asking questions, what I'm trying to encourage you is ask the kind of questions that will really make a difference. Not the kind of questions that's you trying to figure out the truth. That's two kinds of questions. One is I'm just trying to get a validation of what I already think, so it's not really a real question. And the other one is, I really don't know, please tell me what to do and I'll be glad to do it. That's two different kind of questions. Kids come up and ask you, what is that, Daddy? And you could tell them that, I could say, that's a horse. And that child will walk away and say, that's such a pretty horse, Daddy. But it's different from the kid walking up and saying, I've already made up my mind that's a horse. And then I ask Daddy, and Daddy says a radio. Then I go, what do you mean? But see, I wasn't asking an honest question. I wanted a validation of what I already had decided was the truth before I ever asked the question. And the Course says that's not an honest question. And that's the kind of question that most adults ask. Very few adults ever ask a question from the perspective that they don't know the answer. They figured out the answer for themselves or tried to, and they want you to say what they are thinking and what they've come up with. That's the answer. That's the way many adults approach learning, and that's why we have such a slow rate sometimes of improvement. You know. So yeah, Chris.
So that phrase, Holy Spirit, what would you have me say? What would you have me do? What would be like in this moment for me to simply realize that only love is real? I have found myself saying that a lot, but lately, the only thing that I've had like the strength or even the willingness to say is, I ask for another way to look at this. So and I know it's gonna sound like a dumb question, but does that still counts, right?
That's what I meant when I said there are several hundred different suggestions in the material of things that we could say, and that's one of them. And that keeps you from being bored. It's like, you know how it is when you first get a stick of chewing gum and it tastes so good and you chew it for a while, and after a while it's just not working for you anymore. Right? And so you go get another one. That's what you do with the truth. You know, you say one of the truths, you know, I'm never upset for the reason I think, I'm never upset for the reason I think, and then you say it till you don't get any kind of juice out of saying that. Then you choose another one. Because there's an infinite number you can choose. So you're right, you know, switch over to another one. Just make sure it's still something that the truth is telling you to say, and you're still laying right on your feet. Absolutely, do that. Mm-hmm.
So there's situations that I've had where something unpleasant is happening, or thinking or feeling, and like Chris, I'll say one of these things, and I'll have to say it many times to sort of keep pushing back the feeling that is bothering me, and just keep pushing back until I can get to a place where I'm just like, okay. In that process, I'm letting go of a you should do, react, do kind of sense, to the point where if God showed up right in front of right in front of me and said, do this, I'd be like, can't do anything, can't do it. Do you know what I'm saying?
Not really.
Oh. When in trying to quiet the ego's commands, it's just that constant sort of quieting, and then you wonder, am I going to let anything correct in? Am I going to let anything loving? Am I going to let anything inspire?
Okay.
Am I going to let anything in? Because I'm just shutting myself.
If you, what I heard you say was that you were applying the truth over and over and over again, and then you said, am I going to ever let anything in?
There's just sort of and that'll be a brief thought, and I'll shut that one down too. And I've had amazing experiences also. I mean, it's not like it's just that letting go of the need to do something.
Well, just keep on doing what you were doing when you were repeating the truth to yourself. See, that's the part that's a challenge, is that what we're being asked to do is to do the same thing over and over again, no matter what comes up, and that's what drives us crazy. Is that keep on telling yourself the truth, and then when something comes up that upsets you, tell yourself the truth again.
And
that's it.
You will simply listen to that one voice. Because I'm not letting anything.
You will. What is the one voice? The one voice would be the voice of the truth inside of you. That would be the one voice. Now, how can I tell if I'm listening to the voice of truth? What I've studied has taught me the difference between when truth is speaking to me and when my ego is speaking to me. That's why what you were saying earlier about, you got to practice. See, people think that they're going to be able to do that without ever learning what a loving voice says and what a loving voice does and how a loving voice operates. You know what I'm saying? They still want to come up with their own idea of what a loving voice does and what a loving voice says. And that's our problem. We're trying to teach ourselves something that we don't even know what it is. And that's the problem. Because in the books that we study, it tells us exactly what the truth would do in that situation and what fear would do in that situation. But if I never learn the language, I won't be able to recognize the language. That's why I like to look at it as a language. You know, I can't speak French to you if I don't take the time to learn French. I don't care how many people around me speaking French. If I don't take the time to learn French, I'm not going to be able to talk it. So you can come to 1,000,000 truth classes, but if you don't learn how to talk truth to yourself, think truth, then you're going to stay in the same situation, because it means you're making up the truth for yourself as you go along. That's what people mean when they go, this is my truth. I love it when people say, this is my truth. Well, great. You just described to me the Tower of Babel. Because that's what the Tower of Babel was about. You know, everybody coming up with their truth and then expecting everybody to understand and respect their truth when you don't even know what it is. As if there isn't some underlying truth that's true for all of us that we need to get in touch with. There is a truth that's true for all of us, regardless of our anything. That's what we need to get in. And it just told us. The truth is, everything that you're experiencing is coming from your thought and it's coming from your desire. And if you want another way to experience your experience, then you need to give yourself another way of thinking. And one way to do that is to say, when things come up in the world that seem to upset you, say, what would you have me say? What would you have me do? And what would it be like in this moment for me to simply realize that only love is real? Or for me to say, I want another way to look at it. Or for me to say, I give this all the meaning that it has for me. Or for me to say, let me recognize the problem so the problem can be solved. Let me say, I place the future in the hands of God. Let me say, there is nothing to fear. Let me say, God's voice speaks to me all through the day. Let me say, I'm entitled to miracles. You see what I'm saying? It's like when I start responding with the truth that I'm learning instead of the stuff that I make up, now I'm beginning to obey, and now I will begin to see the difference. Okay, I'm going to do a couple more minutes and we're going to go on. Did you have your hands up? And let me get you two.
I just like
I
what
want to
you
give
said
everybody
about
a chance.
the stick of gum, and when that loses its taste, then you choose something else, because when I'm reading on my own, that's my latest stick of gum.
That's right.
And just a couple days ago, I was reading the Daily Word, and it said, God is not the author of confusion, but of peace. And that was really helpful to me, because I'm like, okay, well, that means whenever I feel confused, it's not God talking to me. You know? So I can dismiss it because it's confusion. That means it's not real.
That's right. And to add to what you're saying, there's a way to look at confusion that would even let confusion be a way to move you toward God in love. Because the Course also says another way to look at confusion is that it's a very high state, because it means you let go of one way of looking at things and you haven't completely embraced the new one. So it actually can mean you are not stuck.
Okay.
So confusion can, so you can use both perspectives. You can go, if I'm confused, I'm not really hearing the voice for God. I feel confused, I must be letting go of one way of looking at things. You see what I'm saying? The point is that it's trying to tell us is that once you tune into the loving voice, there is no thought that you have that cannot be used in a way that benefits you, no matter what the thought is. If you have a desire to not be unhappy, and you finally have a desire to really know love. But a person who still believes they deserve to be punished, the person who still feels guilty, will not do that. They won't do it. They just won't do it, because the punishment that they think they deserve, that they're looking for to absorb them, is more important than the answer that they're receiving from Spirit. You had your hand up, right?
I was expecting there to be some kind of a voice or some kind of thought in my head that would be better than before. And what I have noticed is that when I see the situation that I'm looking at no longer be one that's invoking fear or change, I mean, then I thought, oh, that's the answer. I didn't have to receive instructions for something to do necessarily. I just had to be ready to see it change or be reinterpreted or not invoke the fear that it did before.
Right.
And maybe something as simple as somebody losing a pet and all of a sudden it's found. I didn't have to do anything. I just had to choose not to see the situation as a fear-inducing situation or a situation without love.
Right.
And not knowing how to do that, not knowing anything about how, just refusing to accept that that's reality.
Exactly. Exactly. And keep in mind that that perception that you just described, you learned that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That perception of looking at it as an interpretation, and I'm not going to deal with it the way I used to. That's what this is about. It was about you using a point of view that you got from what you have been studying. That's what it's about, the practice of it. Exactly. And then realize that at first it's not going to look like it consistently works. It's very important to get that. The Course says the hardest part of anything is the beginning, because in the beginning your old mind will try to convince you that what you're trying to do with your new mind doesn't work. So when you say you want to make a big change in your life, the biggest trick you can play on yourself is to expect immediately to see everything go the way you think you want it to go, just because you said, what would you have me do? What would you have me say? What would it be like in this moment to realize that only love is real? The ego would love for you to say that nothing changed, so you can say to yourself, it doesn't do any good to do that. And then you stop. That's why at the beginning, you must remember that the Course says we are going to introduce contradictions to what we're trying to accomplish, to keep our old self intact. And if you know that, then it won't stop you when that happens. You got it? Like it's like the truth is telling us even all the tricks that we're going to play on ourselves to even keep from doing it if we'll listen. It actually tells us everything we're going to do before we do it, if we're willing to study. Right? Yeah. So, let's go. Is that everybody?
Just one quick question. Is there because what you just said right now, is there because my mind is thinking there's a time limit on that at a certain amount of time, you should already have this down.
And how does that feel? Does that feel true to you?
I feel very happy.
Right. So what does that tell you?
Mm-hmm. That's not true.
There you go. Mm-hmm. Boom. Just because of the way you feel, it's your way of knowing that what you just told yourself was not the correct perception. Because it didn't make you feel more peaceful, and it didn't make you feel lighter, and it didn't make you feel more joyful. It's hard for us to realize that one day you could have such correct perception that no matter what happens in the world, no matter what it is, or no matter how horrible it seems, you'll have peace about it. Because you'll know that no one dies, we're infinite beings, and that everything that we experience in this world is all part of a divine plan for us to come to the realization that only love is real, and in some cases that calls for things to look like they're happening that doesn't make any sense to us at all. But because we trust that love or God is behind everything, then that whatever happened with the airliner, whatever's going on in Israel, whatever's going on in 5 Points, is still serving some higher level healing that we don't understand at the level of consciousness that we're on. So you'll get to the point that there's nothing in the world that upsets you, because there's nothing happening that you don't give a meaning to that gives you peace. And that's long-term goal. So let's see if we can start out with somebody taking our parking space. Let's start there. Let's start. But the ego said, start with the people on the airline. And that's the last thing you're supposed to try to start with, seeing in a peaceful way. Start with looking at yourself and not condemning yourself because you think you're 2 pounds overweight. Start with looking at yourself in the mirror and not criticizing what you see when you look. Don't start with the airliner. Start with your mama being whatever she is, and you still don't let that upset you. Start there. You see what I mean? It's a trick for us to start with the starving children in Africa. It's just a trick. Because people used to do that in the class all the time when I first started teaching. What about the Holocaust? That you could count on one Holocaust after every class. You're going to tell me that would... See, that's defending the attack thoughts. They don't want to change their grievance. So, let's see what's next. Oh, God. How much longer do I have? Oh my God, this is the longest class.
No, I want more.
That's right.
That's right.
I'm a true poet.
That's right.
I just can't get enough. I just receive the truth with anybody. I'll just share the truth with anybody. They can have as much as they want. So, here's a second observation exercise. All right. We wish to extend to you some simple exercises that can help, we can put into practice. Yay! We mentioned one of them already. A second one is this. Take 10 minutes out of each hour. Set your alarm on your little watches. I like that. Set your alarm on your little watches. And for 10 minutes, actually observe how you're moving your body. For 10 minutes, observe how you move your own body. And for a bonus, you can take 10 minutes to observe how somebody else moved their body. If you're really good, I'll tell you to observe somebody else's body for 10 minutes. He said, for example, I just got off the couch and I'm proceeding to the kitchen. Why? Oh, I'm having the desire for ice cream. Jesus got a real thing about ice cream. He uses ice cream a lot in this book. Okay. I've noticed a lot of the analogies got some ice cream in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So he says, I'm having the desire for ice cream. It has arisen as a thought in the mind. And I have given the thought of ice cream the power to motivate the movement of the body to take the action necessary to now put my hand on the handle of the refrigerator. I'm going to say that again. We always hear that it's thought that's behind everything, right? This was a very simple example. I have the desire for ice cream. That thought gave me the power to move my body to go to the kitchen. And so it says, and by the way, I would have liked to have one of those then, because when Jesus was hanging out, wasn't no refrigerators, wasn't no ice cream. Isn't that a trip? No ice cream. That was hell, wasn't it? Especially Haagen Dazs. Okay. I am now opening the freezer and I'm taking out the cold little carton made out of the body of some tree. And in it is a substance that some other mind created out of desire. Now I'm picking up a utensil called a spoon that was born of another mind that had a desire to make life easier. I am dipping it into the ice cream, and now I am putting it into the body, which itself is also the result of a desire, and I am creating my experience. So if everything we're looking at is the result of a desire, then you and I must be the result of a desire. So something desired us to have existence. End of issue of is there a God? We did not create ourselves. The only thing that we can honestly judge are our own creations. Like if I bake a cake, I can go, I don't know, that cake is a little bit salty. I baked it, I can judge it. I didn't make me, I can't judge me. I didn't make you, so I can't judge you. Because I didn't make you, but I can judge my cake. I made it. You see what I mean? So every time I judge myself, I'm actually assuming that I created myself. But you're really beyond your own judgment because you didn't create yourself. What created you can judge you if it was going to judge. But what we can judge is what we are making, which is our own experience. Earl's life, it was made by Earl in the sense of his experience, but not Earl himself. Y'all got that? Okay. So it says there is no other cause but this, which is, and then he says it again in another way. The arising, the inception of a thought, a feeling, a desire which has birthed the entire movement of a world called the body to create an experience of eating ice cream. You can do that for 10 minutes just by observing what you actually are doing. Now, what does that mean? It does not mean, well, I'm going to work in order to pay the bills. No, you're not. You're going to work because you have held the desire to create something that seems to give you a semblance of safety, predictability, and survival. I'll say it again. You're not going to work in order to pay the bills. You're going to work every day because you held the desire to create something that you call a job that seems to give you a semblance of safety, predictability, and survival. Job or career is that which is birthed out of desire because of your perception of what you think you need. So you are not going to the job in order to do something. You are simply putting the body in the car and you are driving on your freeway. So begin to learn how to observe without embellishment, to observe without interpretation or explanation exactly what you're doing for just 10 minutes. Observe without embellishment, without interpretation, and without explanation. Then if you want to go back to being unconscious, by all means do so. I love that line. So could you spend 10 minutes without, in other words, can I spend 10 minutes without putting my story on everything? Just 10 minutes. Could I just be in this room and observe you and me without me putting my story on top of you, my beliefs on top of you, my past experience, my desires, and my needs, and my scripts? Could I do that for 10 minutes? Could I let anybody or anything happen in my life for 10 minutes without me judging it? Yeah, you bragging. 5. You up to 5?
No.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, doggone it, you can do 5 minutes of non-good. I'm telling you, you Cy Laurel. You know. That's why I had the Course of Miracles again. Both of these work together. It saved me because there's a chapter in the Course of Miracles called the Holy Spirit's Curriculum. And it's called the Judgment of the Holy Spirit. And so it says, okay, basically, if you must judge, and you just can't help it, you got to judge. I'm going to give you a judgment that won't hurt you and that will actually free you. Okay, since you just got to judge, since you just got to have an opinion, since you just got to judge, say this: it's either love or a call for love. You got to judge it. Go, they are called for love. This is a call for love. What I'm feeling is a call for love. That doggone person is a call for love. What's happening in Syria is a call for love. The people that kidnap the schoolgirls, that's a call. They're just big calls for love. If you're going to judge, say it's love or call for love. He says, or call for God, call for help, call for healing. You know, if somebody's sick, say that's a call for health. Somebody's broke, you say that's a call for abundance. Somebody's sad, you go, that's a call for joy. That turns whatever is happening to a prayer for its opposite. And all prayers are answered. I'm depressed today. Instead of saying I'm depressed today, you go, I have a deep call for peace today. He says, if you got to judge, do it that way. You know, I got a deep call for a car that runs. Yeah, whatever you think is missing, see it as a call for it. Take the very thing that you're using to depress you and use it as an opportunity to see it as a request for the opposite. Instead of saying, I'm lonely, you would say, right now I'm feeling a deep call for companionship. So you turn it into a prayer. Turn every ego thought into a prayer. Instead of I'm broke, I've got a deep call for wealth. Instead of homeless, I have a deep call for a home. You see what I mean? You just take whatever you're depressing yourself about and making yourself angry about, and you see it as a request for the opposite. And now you've turned whatever is bothering you into an actual request to God, to the universe. I could do that. I really could do that tonight if I wanted to. And he said the reason why you know why a person doesn't do that, the Course says it's because of their imagined need to attack. I have such a need to feel the pain, to feel the hurt, or to attack somebody that I won't say that. Yeah. See, you just said something that upset me, right? And this book is saying I should see it as a call for love. But really I want to get you straight. So my need to attack you is more important than my need to see that as your call for love. That's what it means. If my need to attack you is stronger than my need to see what you're doing as a call for help, then I'm not going to pay attention to what this is saying. But the Course says, but the challenge with that is, when you do that, that is your request not to have your call for love answered. And that's the real reason why I'm doing it. because it guarantees that when I go crazy, nobody will be compassionate toward me. That's why I don't want to be compassionate toward you. Not because you did something that I can't forgive. I've done something that I can't forgive, so I want to ensure that I still keep getting attacked and judgment by not seeing what you do as a call for love. It's really my own self-hatred that's making me not see what you do as a call for love and forgive you. Deep, isn't it?
Yes, that makes sense.
Yeah, the truth always does make sense. Because we're just playing a very devious game with ourselves until we love ourselves. Okay. And then you come to a class like this and I say, you deserve love and you deserve to be happy and you deserve to be supported and you deserve to have peace. If I don't believe that's true and somebody's saying that to me, then as I listen to them, the first place that my mind is going to go to is how what they're saying is not true. How can I find a flaw in their logic? How can I find a hole in his conversation? He's trying to trick me.
That's the same imagined need for attack.
That's right. That's an imagined need for attack on myself. So I'm not going to hear what anybody says that would make me feel better.
So I'm not loving myself completely yet. So seeing it is giving me an opportunity to see that I need to love myself more.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what it is. I'm telling you. I love it. I love it when you pull it back out of yourself because that's when you know you're getting it. Anyway. Well, like the Course says, the second coming of Christ is the return of your freaking common sense. When I read that, I thought that was one of the best lines I'd ever read in a book in my life. What's the second coming of Christ? The return of your freaking common sense. Because they used to have a stuff when I was talking, my mama was wiser than I thought, but they used to say that, boy, where's your common sense?
Yeah.
Because people have lost their common sense. They're intellectual giants who have no common sense. Oh, I love this stuff. I love this stuff. And I don't care what I'm feeling like. If I'm focusing on this, I always feel better. I don't care what I'm going through. I feel better. If it's not just a little bit, I feel better. I'm so grateful I have other ways to look at my life and what's going on in this world. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. So it says, in this way, you'll begin to discern something that is also going on the whole time, like an underground current or river. For because you are reality, there is always the desire to extend the good, the holy, and the beautiful. So by observing what you are actually doing, you will discover that you are actually succeeding at that far more often than you give yourself credit for. Like if you start to observe yourself, you will see that you're actually succeeding more than you're giving yourself credit for. Like if you really took the moment to really observe yourself now as compared to 6 months ago or a year ago, you will recognize if you took a minute to do it and not judge yourself all the time for what you think you're not doing, you would see that you're succeeding far more than you're giving yourself any credit for. So that's the other advantage of taking 10 minutes to look at yourself and observe yourself and what you're doing. It actually will allow you to give yourself some credit for what you're doing. He said you will begin to see in some of your ordinary smiles, in the decision to take a card and send it to a friend, in the decision to refrain from a hurtful word, you will begin to discover that that too was birthed from desire within your holy mind. So in other words, we're learning that everything is coming from our desire, right? The temptation when you hear that is to beat yourself up for the things you created out of your desire that you don't like. And what we're being told is, if you start observing yourself, you'll notice that you're doing a lot of loving things out of your desire that you may not have done before. So don't take that idea that you create through your desire just to beat yourself up to say, well, dog, I'm desiring to be broke, and I'm desiring to be sick, and I'm desiring to be lonely. He says, yeah, but you're also desiring to be here because you love yourself. You're also desiring to try to be more open-minded. You're also desiring to try to look at things another way. Don't just focus on that rule just to make yourself feel bad. And if that is indeed what you're doing, is that your ego, or is that the Holy Spirit in you that's doing that? You know it's your ego that's doing it. Ha! And you will begin to taste that there is a depth to you that is already beyond fear, that's already beyond illusion, already rested in compassion, love, wisdom, and truth. And you will begin to discover that you are already having many successes upon which you can build, many successes that you can acknowledge within yourself as a way of getting the taste, the feel that surely Christ does dwell in my mind. That means surely love does dwell in my mind. I once suggested to you that you remember only your loving thoughts. Remember only your loving thoughts. Remember only your loving thoughts. But the trick to that is that you must first become aware of your loving thoughts before you can remember your loving thoughts. So he's trying to teach us how to become aware of our loving, successful thoughts so we can remember our loving, successful thoughts. And the trick to that is that you must first become aware of them. So many become trapped in the depression, anxiety, and insanity of the mind because many put all of their energy into perceiving what is amiss. In other words, people who are trapped in depression, anxiety, and insanity are people who are putting all their energy into perceiving what's wrong. People ask what's wrong with me when they should be asking what's right with me. Never ask yourself what's wrong with me. Never say to yourself what's wrong with me. Say what's right with me. So depressed people are doing what? Putting all their energy into what they think is missing, what they think is lacking, and no energy into perceiving their success as Christ or love. So in each 10-minute practice period, learn to develop the ability to observe what you are really doing. In other words, when you stop at Starbucks on your way to your job and you go in and you give some money to the person who gives you your cup of coffee and you look them in the eye and smile and say, thank you, you just succeeded. That means you communicated truth. You have remembered that the one in front of you is worthy of your respect. The person who's giving you the coffee is worthy of your love, and that is success. Each time you can interrupt the momentum of the mind for perceiving nothing but problems. Anytime you can interrupt that momentum of your mind that's always seeing what's wrong, always seeing the problem, always seeing something to be unhappy about, always seeing something to be unhappy about. Until you will begin to discover that the underground river of the mind of love of Christ is still within you still. As you feel your successes more and more deeply, that in turn builds your desire to live in that stream of success. And moment by moment, day to day, you will cultivate the power necessary to be identified only with that mind. So at some point, you get rid of the duality and you start to only believe the truth about you, and you're no longer trying to believe two different thought systems. One saying I'm the creator and the one saying I'm the victim. You go strictly to I'm the creator, I'm the responsible, I'm the one that has the desire that's creating the experience that I'm having. So that's what I'm working on right now. I'm really working on getting out of the sense of duality and going into a non-dual consciousness. And that's what he's saying. Every time you do that, you move in that direction. He says, for a while, this is really important, for a while it will seem that there are two thought systems. For a while it's going to look like there are two ways to think, which is what? The old one that you used to be identified with, and the one that seems to be being birthed within you right now. So that's the confusion. That's the upset. That's what I mean by the confusion being a very high state. Because for a while, you're listening to what the world taught you, and you're also trying to listen to what the Way of Mastery in the Truth book. And so we go back and forth. And that going back and forth actually explains why you have good days, bad days, things that go right and things that don't. Because you're not adhering to the new thought system 100% of the time. You're going back and forth between I'm a woman and I'm an unlimited spiritual being. He says you actually have an identity that goes with both of those. But the truth is you're the creator of the experience of both of those. So therefore, you are unbelievably powerful. So he tells us, he says, the old one that you used to be identified with and the one that seems to be being birthed within you, you are really just remembering it, but you are choosing to bring the discipline necessary, the vigilance necessary to retrain the mind to be identified, not with this realm of illusion and false ideas, but you're training your mind to be identified with the stream of reality that is flowing through you. You want the truth to flow through you. How? Unimpeded, unobstructed, throughout all eternity, without end. That's what you're looking for. He says that's the one gift that this time is providing you with. That is all there is. So you can't use time to store up wealth. You can't use time to store up wealth in some bank account for the future, since the future doesn't exist. And you have no control over what will happen to the golden coins in your world. Time has only one purpose. The purpose God has given to it, the purpose love has given to it, the purpose the Comforter has given to it, and that purpose is the atonement or the undoing of error of the child of God. So the purpose of time is to undo every erroneous thought that keeps you from knowing how powerful and beautiful and unlimited and loved you are. That's what time is for. To get rid of everything that keeps me from loving my friggin' self and loving you. It's not to store up money, because I can store up money and hate myself and just make myself, matter of fact, I can bankroll my pain better. Sometimes I think that's why I didn't let myself have lots of money. Because until I really had the correct perception of it, I just put a bigger noose around my neck. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
You know, if the person is so broke that they can only buy a joint, and then you give them $1 million and they get 10 pounds of cocaine. You know what I'm saying? So they'll use the money to just take themselves into even deeper limitation. So I'm glad. Whatever's happening in my life right now, even if I don't always feel good about it, I'm going to claim it as good. I'm going to claim that there's some underlying current of healing that's going on no matter what's going on in my life right now. Because that actually feels better. So I know it must be closer to the truth. Last paragraph. Now, all that sounds very lofty, doesn't it? Yeah. And your mind says, well, yes, of course, I understand it perfectly well. Thank you. Good day. And then that very mind says, I love this, man. What you just said, this was the best class I ever heard. This class is everything I've ever needed. This is what I've been praying for. And never see you again. Happens to me all the time. This is it. This is what I've been waiting for. This gave me the insight I needed. I had a miracle. Never see him again. I'm telling you, we are not aware of just how insidious our own ego mind is about keeping us from ever being happy. He says the reason why that's true is because we identify with it as being us. We think our ego is us. So I go, I feel bad, I'm mad, I'm not enough. That's my ego feels bad. My ego is not enough. My ego isn't loving people. But I go, I'm not loving people. You are love. Who you are can't do anything but love. Of course, but your ego can hold grievances against everybody. So it never is you, really, that's not being loving. It's your idea of yourself that you are acting out that's not being loving. You are not your ego. You are not your fear. So it says, and then that very mind does what? Goes right back to its same old patterns. Having heard, it has not heard. Having tasted, it has not swallowed. Thank you for listening to this much with me, Holy Spirit, tonight. Let yourself hear another way of looking at it. Wow. That was deep. That was deep. That was deep. So we're going to do a quick wrap up of the main points that we heard. And then we're going to go out in the lab and see if we've tasted or if we've heard anything that we've heard tonight. Thank you for sharing. Let's do the financial expression of appreciation. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Those on the internet, thank you for your financial expressions of appreciation. And some of you have asked me how you can do that. Just go to my website, earlpurdy.com. And if you want to work with me on a one-on-one level where we can apply these truths to your personal situation, you can have a clarity session with me, and this explained also on my website, earlpurdy.com, and check that out. And if you will sign up for my contact list, then you can get links sent straight to your email that will allow you to watch my videos immediately as they are posted. It's the way that we do it. So I want to thank all of you on the internet, all of you in the room, for feeling like there's enough value in what I say to actually share with me in a way that makes a difference in my life. I really appreciate that. You are God, helping God. That's exactly what it is. So we're going to do the Course in Miracles class at 1 o'clock on Sunday. We're going to keep that going. So let's before I do that, one thing I heard tonight that I would like to remember is, anybody, one thing that I heard tonight that I would really, and if you need to sign the contact list, I also have it up here. So let's see if we can pull something back out, because remember, when we can pull it back out, that's how we know we're beginning to get it. So is there anything that anybody's willing to say that they heard tonight that they would really like to stay conscious of?
Well, Earl, I really love when you said that when I'm depressed, for me to say it's my call for peace.
Mm-hmm.
When I am lonely, it's my call for companionship.
Thank you.
When I'm broke, it's my call for abundance.
Thank you. And imagine if we were in a relationship or friendship with each other and that's the way we communicated with each other, how much faster we would get the result. See, that's the purpose of a relationship, not to make sure that you're not alone in your old age and you just got another body with you, like I've heard a lot of people say. It's like, how can I use my relationship as a means and a tool for awakening to who I really am and helping you awaken to who you really are in love? Now you're talking about a real relationship that really means something. Yeah, thank you.
Mine was remembering to give myself credit for the progress I am making.
Thank you. Because if you really observe, what he said, we really observed ourselves for just 10 minutes, instead of criticizing ourselves more, we actually see where we're succeeding more than we give ourselves credit for. Thank you.
Which was this, the shift of feeling this rather than overthinking, that you really can feel better, and that maybe is the direction you want to go, that you can even feel it in your body. It's not just something you think or say.
Thank you.
But you feel it.
Thank you. Yeah, feeling is everything. He talks so much about feeling. Because feeling is nothing but a belief that, and a thought that you've accepted is true to the point that you've given it an emotional meaning. So things you do out of feeling have much more impact and manifest faster than things that you just do think intellectually without any kind of desire or passion behind it. We get mad with a lot of emotion about it, and then we wonder why more and more drama happens. But when somebody says something loving to us, we don't have the same level of passion. And then we wonder why the good stuff don't happen. When I don't have as much juice behind somebody telling me something loving as I do when they upset me about something. And so of course I see more upset than I see peace. Right?
The thing that really touched me was earlier when it spoke about that when we learn to walk awake and aware, that we are both conscious at the same time of our third dimensional being and our non-third dimensional larger being. Because so often in so many teachings, or at least the interpretation of so many teachings, it's assumed that as you become awakened, you will lose track of your third dimensional being. It loses any value. And if that's not true, it's that they both coexist in peace.
Exactly. And your human identity becomes a conduit for your divine identity to actually function in the world. So it actually is a merging of the two. The Course in Miracles talks about that also too. It's like all of a sudden you give your body, which is neutral, a whole new purpose and a whole new meaning. And that human beings actually have more powers and abilities available to them that we don't even recognize. We haven't even taken advantage of just what our human identity is capable of, let alone our divine identity. Yeah. So it's so it's not human bashing. Okay? Because sometimes people think the truth is human bashing, but it's not at all. It's like, why don't you let your human body be used for all that unlimited love and abundance and stuff. Okay, anybody else have a thought that they'd like to regurgitate? Yeah.
I liked when you said to transform your experience, enjoy it more and more, and attach to it less and less.
Yeah, that was great, wasn't it? Yeah, I loved it when he said that about when you will get to the point that it won't have any power over you, that you will be able to look at it and it won't have any power over you because you finally learn how to look at it correctly. And the idea that your thought is what's creating your reality, because it's as simple as that thought motivated me to get up to go to the kitchen to get the ice cream. That came from a thought. That everything is coming from thought, and since we're all capable of thinking, then that means we can make our bodies be motivated to do whatever it is that we want to achieve just by the thought of it. And that other thing says it's impossible to not have desire. That there's no such thing as being desireless. Because sometimes on the spiritual path, people think being spiritual means you no longer have any desire. And some teachings teach that. Now, here's the cool part about it. The people who are attracted to a teaching that teaches that are the people that need to have a teaching that teaches that. Just we have to always remember that. That's why it says in the end, you need to learn how to listen to your own inner voice and not somebody else's opinion, because they're on their own individual path, and on their path they might be asked to do exactly opposite from what you're being asked to do. So if you need their validation, you may not follow your own guidance. But if it's a guidance that's coming from the truth, it's always going to be what? Rooted in love. And that's going to be the core of it, even if there's a million different paths in here. It's going to be going toward love. So I don't have to fear your path, because your path is only going to bring more love. But it's going to do it in your own unique way, which actually gets over the whole boredom thing. You know, it's like, how many variety of ways can love and joy come to me today through how many people? That's why I have a hard time with the concept of loving one person and only loving one person and only giving your attention to one person, because everybody's a world of love. Everybody's got something that you could experience through them that you could never experience with somebody else. Why limit yourself to one person? Why? You know, that doesn't make sense to me. And it's certainly not putting you down, because you're not like you in your unique expression. So it's like comparing apples and oranges. There is no competition if you're being true to yourself. There is no competition from another man or woman. That's why jealousy is so passé. It's just a person that's not in touch with their own power and divinity. That's where it comes from. So therefore they're trying to get that validation through somebody else. And that desire is going to produce that experience. So what do you say when you have a situation that comes up that's totally upsetting you? What are we supposed to say according to what we heard tonight? What was one of the things we were told to say?
What do you want me to do, Holy Spirit?
What do you want me to do?
What do you want me to say?
What do you want me to say?
This is an opportunity to see love in this moment.
This is an opportunity for me to see that love is real in this moment. So let's take a breath, and then let's kind of bring it in. We got 1 minute. I just want you to, let's just be together for a second. So begin to learn to observe without embellishment, without your story. Learn how to observe without interpretation or explanation. Exactly what you're doing, observe it for just 10 minutes. Then, if you want to go back to being unconscious, by all means do so. So we were even blessed to be unconscious if we wanted to. Thank you, you unlimited, beautiful, luscious, gorgeous spiritual beings. Let's acknowledge us for being here. We are cool. I'm telling you. So, may the course be with you.